You are the cap for whatever goes on in your store, in your company, in your district, in your household. However excited you are, what you believe is possible, whatever that threshold is. Good afternoon, team. Jim Cripps here with the Charge Forward podcast, coming to you from Hit Lab Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. I have an absolutely fantastic treat for you today. He is a legend here in Nashville. If you know anything about baseball, you will absolutely know his name. He brought the Sounds to Nashville. He was the vice president of marketing at the Rangers. Now he is neck deep in bowling, and I would call him a champion for bowling, keeping bowling centers intact and introducing youth to the sport all the time. Welcome, Mr. Larry Schmittou.
My pleasure to be here, Jim.
Absolutely. And Steve, welcome to the show as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. Now, Larry, we met 24 years ago, I believe.
Something like that.
So you had a center over in Hillwood, and I was a young bowler back then. No gray hair back then, I don't believe. And I had gotten kicked out of your main center, and so on a Tuesday night, I show up at Hillwood, and you were working the counter, and you motioned for me to come over, and I knew who you were, but we hadn't actually spoken before. And you said, "I heard you got kicked out of my Hendersonville location," and I said, "I did, but I wasn't upset about it." I said, "I'm sure they thought they were doing what they were supposed to," and you said, "I'm going to make it up to you," and I said, "No, you don't have to do a thing. You don't need to make anything up to me at all." And the next week, you had a surprise for me. Mm-hmm. And who did you have down on the lanes that next Tuesday?
Well, I think that's when you demonstrated your unusual approach to bowling to Rudy Kalis and Channel 4. And I told Rudy that, hey, I got a guy that's kind of doing something nobody else is doing, and he's pretty good at it. And so, Rudy ran a nice article on you back then, and so you've come a long way.
Well, Rudy's a great guy too, and I don't know that I can express how thankful and how much I appreciate you doing that for me way back when, because it was the first time I was ever on television, and I was so nervous because I remember you waited to start league until Rudy got the shot that he wanted, and it was my mission to throw a strike. That's what they wanted on TV, and I was so nervous because it was the first time. I think it took me 12 or 14 throws to get a strike, and we just kept at it, and then I think I interviewed with Rudy 2 or 3 more times, and then did another one there with, was it Joe on the Go? I think that was Channel 2 one morning. There at Hillwood, but again, the first time I was over on TV, that panic moment was right then, right there, and I'm eternally grateful because I got better, not only as a bowler, but I got better at being in front of the camera.
I can remember asking you, "Why do you do this?" And you did it on a dare, didn't you?
I did. I was not a bowler. And just as a joke one night, because all my friends were bowlers, serious bowlers, and they were giving me a hard time for how bad I was. And so as a joke, I threw the ball behind me, and the first ball was a strike. And I turned around, and they were all mad. And I thought, well, if this is all I've got to do to make y'all mad, I'll keep doing it. And, but it was operators like yourself and the people at the Pinnacle that, kind of put up with me doing that type of thing. But I also think you saw that I was being serious about it.
Right.
I wasn't. We were talking just a moment ago about somebody throwing 2 balls down the lane at the same time and hitting a sweep. That can break things.
Right.
And I don't encourage anybody to bowl backwards. Let's just be real about that. But before you got into bowling, you could, if we took the last 25 years of the bowling accolades and things that you've done in that world, that's almost a side note compared to the things you did at Vanderbilt and for the Rangers and really for Nashville bringing sports here. So, where did the love for sports and specifically baseball, where did that start?
Well, I was a player in high school in summer leagues, and I actually started coaching when I was a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
Junior Knothold started. My high school coach had a couple of myself and one of my friends to go to this little elementary school and pick out a team and play in there. And my friend Bobby Roberts, he picked the biggest guy in the class. He turned out to be the biggest sissy, and this little guy came up and said, "Pick Deardoff. He's the best player." And I wound up with a really good team, and I kind of fell in love with coaching and decided that's what I wanted to do. And became a Nashville school teacher and coached some basketball and football and coached the summer leagues and had great teams in the summer that went to World Series. And then Vanderbilt came and offered me a job when they didn't give any scholarships or anything else. But Mr. Jess Neely was the athletic director, and I believed in him. And he got us started, and I was able to recruit a lot of the guys that played for him in the summer. And we won some championships, and I truly love coaching. That was my calling, and I've always mixed coaching into everything I did, really, whether it's business, coaching, owning a team, or whatever. And but then all these kids started coming along. My wife Shirley and I, we've been married 65 years,
Congratulations.
and we have 5 children. And I made no money almost at Vanderbilt to support them, so I needed to do something else. And that's when I decided that, well, Nashville hadn't had a professional team for 15 years, and if we get something, a stadium, we could have a minor league team. And so I pursued that, and unfortunately, we had to build our own stadium, and we formed a little partnership. And Conway Twitty became my savior when he joined into it with a major contribution. We got it done, and people started coming.
And so when Conway came in, did that kind of set the stage for others to kind of follow suit and help bring it to reality, or was it mostly his?
Well, we first started out just wanting, it was about 4 people, and Walter Nipper and Reese Smith and Carl Hire. And when the bank said, we was trying to get a $300,000 loan, and they said you got to sign jointly and severally, that kind of disappeared. And so a lawyer friend told me to form a limited partnership where I was a general partner, and was able to borrow $30,000 to be that general partner. And Conway saw what my plan was in the newspaper. I didn't know Conway.
Oh, wow.
Had his son in my baseball camp, and he asked a mutual friend to invite me out, and he said, "Well, I'll buy the rest." And he had just moved here from Tulsa, and Roy Clark had joined a group to bring a team to Tulsa. And turns out the major guy was kind of a crook, and Roy lost his money, and his accountant said, "Oh, don't do this." And Conway said, "I promise you that, but let's try a different approach. I'll take 20% and get you some other people." He got Cal Smith, who sang Hello Country Bumpkin, and Ellie White, a songwriter, involved. That was 35% of it. Through my Vanderbilt connection, I developed a real friendship with Jerry Reed. And told him what I was doing. He said, "Good, I'm in. Just leave me alone. Let me help coach his football team," because he's a big Vanderbilt fan. And then Reese and Walter got back involved, and a few other people, and so we raised our $300,000, and that wasn't enough. But people of Nashville, when I couldn't get it done, my builder, Burr Region, suggested I do some things and ask people. So I went out and saw Eve Hoover, and Eve was always very involved in the Una area. And so I asked him, I said, could you give me a deal on pouring the concrete? And He first said no, and then he said, "I'll go down there and get Larry Hayes to play at Vanderbilt to contribute to cement and get Buddy Skinner over at Tennessee Products to donate the sand. I'll pour all the concrete." And we thought we'd run into rock everywhere, but in left field, we had to go down 38 feet
Wow.
to get one light tower up. But again, Eve Hoover did that. Another guy contributed. Arliss Green did all the gap work of caulking, and so with the help of Nashville and everybody else, it was a Nashville product.
Sure.
And so I think all that helped us when we opened. We weren't 100% finished, but we didn't have the field graded right, so I graded. We went on a road trip for about 12 days, so we brought a grader in right field after our first homestand and covered it with straw. And Memphis came into play, and their coach came in and said, "Worst field I ever saw, Larry. Worst field I ever saw." And they beat us in a doubleheader, and I asked him, "What do you think about that field now?" He said, "Best field I ever saw, best field I ever saw." And he became a major league manager. Every time I saw him, he started out with that. But it really was a trying time.
Yeah.
But I was still coaching at Vanderbilt the first year.
Okay.
But if it hadn't been for Conway, we couldn't have got it done.
Yeah. And just, I mean, what a kind of combination of things that had to come together. One, he was moving here. Two, he had a child in your camp, so he knew enough about you to know you were a stand-up guy and that you do what you say you're going to do, and you can tell a lot about somebody how they can.
And he had a great love of baseball.
Yeah. And we were talking just a moment ago. Hard to believe it's been 32 years since he passed.
Yeah, it's true.
It's been a long time. Now, all those people coming together, I mean, I think you kind of said this, is it really was Nashville's team, not just because it was in Nashville, but because so many people had a part of it. And I'm sure in those first, maybe that first season, a lot of that was because they wanted people to come and see it because they've been a part of it.
No, that's true, and we had no other team, so the newspaper, the TV station, they really covered us, and so it was a long gap, I believe 15 or 16 years from the time the Nashville Vols went out of business as weren't drawing at all in a dilapidated stadium till they had really something other than, say, Vanderbilt sports in Nashville.
Sure.
And there was no football. There was no, even the hockey team, the Dixie Flyers, had disbanded. So we were kind of the only team in town.
Yeah. Now, how was it? Obviously you were finishing up as you were going along, still coaching at Vanderbilt. Was there a clear jumping off point where you knew you had to go all in and be running the Sounds, or?
Well, I'd already, after our initial year, even though we had 13 rainouts, we still set attendance records. We had bought a team in Greensboro, North Carolina, to bring baseball back there in Class A. And I knew that, hey, that was going to be the last year I could double up. So I'd already made up my mind at the end of the 79 year I would leave Vanderbilt. But the NCAA stepped in and said I was connected with pro ball, so they passed a thing that said, hey, you need to go ahead and pass the torch. This was in January of 79. So I stepped down in January of 79.
Gotcha. And then as you guys were finishing and had your first season underway for the Sounds, what did the second season look like?
Well, we came in and finished what we had not started. And so we were with the Cincinnati Reds, and a very popular team at that time. They gave us great talent, but they wouldn't let us use the designated hitter. But other teams could against us. So we was kind of at a crossroads. So we'd already announced we was going to leave them at the end of the year, but they had such a good team and good pitching, great hitting. We wound up winning the championship.
Oh, wow.
The last year was with them, and then we signed with the Yankees for 1980, and they just gave us great teams. 1981 team was loaded up with all-stars, Hall of Famers.
That's fantastic. What a great place to be in, and
Yeah.
stories to tell. Of that era, who was your favorite player?
Well, there's two. One was Skeeter Barnes, and the other was Willie McGee. And Willie was such a humble superstar. I always remember he could run so good that one day he played center field, and somebody hit one out there, really hit it hard. He turns his back on the ball and hit him right in the middle of the back of his back. I said, Willie, slow down. And when he got to the big leagues with St. Louis, he had hit. My wife and I was at the World Series game against Milwaukee, and he hit 2 home runs, made a circus catch in game 1. And the next day he came up to the gate while I was waiting on the gate to come on. I said, Willie, I thought you'd be taking batting practice. He said he was going to see some of the buildings in Milwaukee and ask him how he's doing with his big paychecks now. And he said, well, Coach, I came from nothing, and so I'm just kind of living off my meal money here and saving my money to buy my mama a house.
Oh, wonderful.
And then Skeeter was a guy right out of high school and been up, down, was thinking about quitting and going to work for the fire department in Indianapolis, and asked me to recommend him. I said, sure, but you're making $5,000 a month being a insurance policy. He stuck around, got with Detroit, he played every position, got 4 or 5 years in the big league, still involved in baseball, professional baseball. So just because of their work ethic and coming from nothing to make something of themselves just admired me. And there was plenty of others I could have named.
Sure. Well, I think it's those that stand out that have that work ethic, that also have, I don't even know if I want to say humble, but they appreciate where they are and what they're doing.
Sure do.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there were a lot of things, even after you guys, got the funding and got your first season underway and those types of things. What were some unexpected challenges that hit you that would have caused most people to stop?
Well, I had no money.
That'll do it.
But, I remember John Bibb told me when I first started out, he said, Schmittou, you're going to go broke. I said, well, I'm already broke, so I can't do any worse. So not having any money, but after we got going, we had too large of an ownership group with too many different opinions, and that was a mistake. The good people, but, you got to have a head that has full authority.
That's right.
And everybody else pulling for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how did that shake out? How did you have those, there's a lot of people that would delay that, and it would hurt the team. Obviously you had to go ahead and deal with those. Well,
we bought out a few people, and they made money when they sold. Sure. And nothing, like I said, there's good people. We just had different philosophies. I always thought, put the money in, you get your money when you get out, and put your money right back into, and being a general partner, that means you're 100% responsible for your debts. And limited partner, you're limited to your exposure, but you're also limited to how much power you have.
Sure.
So none of us were experienced business people. So and some of the things just worked themselves out.
Okay.
You know, Conway had to sell. He went through a divorce, and he sold his. Some of us bought his share, and then we had a couple of new people came in when we was trying to get Major League Baseball, and especially including Bronson Ingram. And so there at the end, it had nothing to do with bad ownership. It's just timing of when the Titans came, we knew where the money was going. It was going to be a tough road to hoe.
Sure.
And after 19 years, I made a decision for the best for my family. It's best for me to go ahead and get out
Yeah.
and take my money and do something else.
Sure. And well, along the way, and I didn't know this until we were talking earlier, but you had a big role with the Rangers, kind of in the middle of that. So how did that come to be?
Well, the Rangers were struggling to draw people in 1982. Joe Klein, who was the general manager of the Rangers at the time, called me in February and said, "Do you ever been propositioned this early in the morning?" I said, "Never been propositioned, period." But he said, "Could you come out here and be interviewed to take over about 13 departments?" And so I went out, met the owner, Eddie Childs, and we had an interview. He offered me the job, told me what was in front of me. And we only had one way to go, and that was up. And so we put in some family promotions like we had in the Sounds. And I had 4 good years there. But Mr. Childs was losing money in his other business and had to sell. And it was kind of after 4 years, it was, do you stay? Do you go? I thought Mr. Gaylord was going to buy him out, but he backed out at the last minute. And so we had a mutual understanding. I tell people I left for health reasons. They got sick and tired of me. But I had a disagreement with the person that they put in charge of the whole company. And then that's when they sold to George Bush's group.
Gotcha. Okay. And so then you just got all your focus, or most of your focus, back here in Nashville.
Right, came back in '86, end of '86.
Yeah. And then fast forward, we know, it was going to be tough once the Titans, were here, getting the attention, getting the funding, all those things. But I'm sure it was also a tough decision to make after you'd grown it from just an idea.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. You have to be where it wasn't fun.
Okay.
And I always think if you don't enjoy what you're doing, go do something else. And so I was ready. I got a good offer from some people in Chicago, and some of the other owners sold with me. Walter and the 2 of the Smiths boys. So it all worked out. I knew I was going to do something else. I just didn't know what it was. I'm 60 years old. I was 57 years old when I sold it.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to figure out what to do.
Okay.
But I was definitely going to do something.
Sure. Well, and how did you end up in bowling?
By accident. I wanted to do something that was similar to my skills. And all of us used to eat at a little place called Denison's up on 8th Avenue, and the owner of the Melrose Center had eaten up there several times, but he had died. And so after exploring a couple other things that didn't meet my fancy, I approached his daughter about buying Melrose, and she wanted to sell, but her stepbrother did not want to sell, so that didn't work out. In the meantime, actually going back to baseball, I had put together a group trying to get Major League Baseball to Nashville.
Right.
And I didn't have enough money to be the lead dog, but I made acquaintances with Rick Scott. Rick Natchez had been the head of HCA, had left there, but I knew he was a tiny part of the group that bought the Rangers, and he was from Kansas City. So we had made an approach to buying Kansas City.
Okay.
That went to the guy that was already running them that was from a Walmart clan. So Rick stayed on me, let's do something together. And so the center in Murfreesboro, Tennessee became available. Mm-hmm. We reached agreement. I had presented to Rick, here's an idea. I had taken the financial statements of a company called Bowl America that at that time owned 18 bowling centers, but they were publicly traded, and they were all made mostly in one area of Washington, Baltimore area. And I said, we could do this. So I got involved with the Patrick family. Mm-hmm. Doug had been in in bowling for a time, so I said, why don't you stick with me for 90 days and teach me something about this? And so that was our first center, and we bought it. Then all of a sudden, a lot of other people said, it's time for us to get out. So by the next July 1, we went from owning no centers in September of 2000 to owning 6 months later in Louisville and in Nashville.
Yeah, that's a fast lesson.
Yep.
But you had to have some joy in it to stay in it this long.
Well, I enjoy it. I enjoy my employees. We have 500 some odd employees now, and but I really enjoy the customers. That's what I enjoyed about the Sounds. I enjoyed walking those steps and talking to the customers. I enjoyed talking baseball to them. I'm a good listener. Some people don't think that, but I'm a real good listener. So when I got into bowling, I listened to you league bowlers gripe. I listened to old open bowlers of what they liked. Mm-hmm. And then I decided I got different groups in here. These league bowlers want low prices, a consistent shot. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know what that is. They want equipment that work. They want a clean facility. And they want employees that are polite. Mm-hmm. My open bowlers, they don't care about the shot. They think it's something you drink.
That's right.
But they want good food. Mm-hmm. They want good drinks. They want to have a good time. They want to hear some music. Mm-hmm. So it didn't take me long to figure out what the different groups wanted. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had to overcome to the league bowlers of the initial thought, well, he don't like league bowlers. I loved them. It just not wasn't enough of them. Mm-hmm. So, we had to have different game plans for leagues, different game plans for open bowlers, different game plans for birthday parties, fundraisers, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where so many people go wrong is they don't get that it's different customers that have a desire to be treated differently. And as long as you listen enough to get, you're not going to make everybody happy, but if you can kind of segment them out and say, this is what we do for these, this is what we do for them. One of the things that I think a lot of bowling centers could learn from you is the fact that you do have a sizable arcade or other types of activities where if the family wants to come, it's not just bowling. They can spend all day there if they want to.
Right, and we have some full family entertainment centers like Hendersonville. We have 46 lanes.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night, we're totally full with league bowlers.
I love that.
But on the other nights, we have usually pretty full with open bowlers. Mm-hmm. And, if you don't want to bowl, number one, you can go play laser tag, roller skate, bungee jump, bumper cars, video games, or you just go eat some real good food.
That's right.
And or shoot a game of pool. Mm-hmm. So we have one of those in each of our markets,
Okay.
pretty much, with the exception of Knoxville. And so, it's expensive to own a bowling center. People don't realize that. It's expensive.
Each lane is expensive.
Well, not only that, the whole building's expensive. You got air conditioners. You got a whole lot of square footage to put a bowling center. So, and when, you're a league bowler, most league bowlers don't really know what they're paying the owner. They know what the USBC fees is and the prize money. But mostly, we're getting like $12, and you're there for 2.5 hours. Where else can you go and be entertained for less than $5 an hour?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things too is it's almost like, and as a league bowler, as somebody that's been a bowler the last 25 years, it disheartens me sometimes that they will put so much onus on the owner, when it's not their fault. Meaning, everything's gone up. Inflation has been crazy. And yes, league bowling has gone up, but the cost of league bowling has not gone up anywhere near the rate that inflation has. And so the business owner is really the one covering the cost on that. And so sometimes it's just, I wish people would be more appreciative of the owner.
Well, I just hope they have a good time. That's a business decision. You as a league bowler, you're bowling for less than $4 a game. You don't rent shoes.
Right.
An open bowler comes in, he's going to pay $5.50 a game, plus he's going to rent shoes. So all that goes into making money. We're not a nonprofit organization. We make money.
That's right.
So, and I do the budgets. I've turned over a lot of the control to the kids, and I'm eventually going to go away. But we have to make money to keep going, to do capital improvements,
Sure.
To buy other centers,
That's
and to
right.
pay our employees a competitive wage.
That's right. And that becomes more challenging every year.
Oh, it's really been challenging the last year. Our labor cost has gone up about 15%.
Sure. And what did I hate to open this wound, but what did COVID do to you guys? As an owner and with multiple centers, was it?
Well, it just caught us by surprise. I mean, we got shut down everywhere within 24 hours. Every center closed, and so for 90 days we had no revenue. Fortunately, as part of ownership, I've developed a plan where every employee would be taken care of. If they made more money by going on unemployment, they went on that, knowing they're coming back when we got open. If they didn't make as much, we just kept them on. We cleaned and we cleaned and we cleaned for that 90 days, and I put a little extra money in there. And fortunately, when it was over, people just flocked back. I always tell this story. When the Tennessee allowed us to open, in that May or so, whatever day it was, last day of May, we opened at 8 o'clock. And the first person at the door was a 92-year-old league bowler that was wanting to see his friends.
Yeah, that's the story right there. People were starved for that social interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, it's why I bowl. Don't get me wrong, I love bowling, but sometimes bowling is work. It's the interactions that you have. It's that weekly. I know I'm going to see these people. We're going to probably have the same conversation we've had 50 times before, but we're going to laugh just like we always have. And you take that away from people, and some people don't make it.
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of bowling centers that went away.
Sure. And it feels like more every day with land values going up, it becoming harder to service the customer. So customers, kind of hiding behind that, their keyboard, trashing places, whereas they could have just had a conversation. And I mean, I get it. We've lost here locally. Donaldson was not long ago. Now you've got one in Donaldson.
Donaldson Plaza, yeah. And also Hermitage.
Yep. And then Is Oak Valley still around?
No, it's been gone a long time.
I thought it'd been gone. Melrose, obviously, it's all apartment
Right.
buildings these days. Hillwood, which I know Hillwood was a challenge. We were talking about that earlier. Share a little bit about that, because I'm sure somebody right now has a center or has a business where they have multiple locations, and they have one that is challenging from just a overall experience like Hillwood.
Well, number one, they priced us out in rent,
right.
but even at that, I wasn't. We had a lot of trouble at that Hillwood locations. There was different demographics that were there, from the very, very wealthy to middle class to the lower class, and we had more disturbances there than all my other centers had together.
Yeah.
So even though I'm from West Nashville, that center was just different. It just was a different challenge every weekend of the clientele. That, half of the clientele you'd love to have, the other half you wanted to get away.
But and it's such a shame too, because it was a beautiful center. And I remember that one. Was that the Kmart or the Walmart?
It was a Kmart.
Yeah.
And we had too many square feet, and we had it was a family entertainment center, but we had a wall between there, which never again will I do that.
Sure.
So, and it helped me to design Hendersonville
Yeah.
to where it was traditional on one side, family fun center on the other side.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is you learn from that, and you take it into the next one.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, we were talking the other day. You're 84, is that right?
84 going on 85.
And still working 6 days a week.
Yeah, I don't work 8 hours a day. That's a little misleading, but I'm there 5 or 6 hours a day for 6 days. On Sundays, I try to do a little paperwork at home.
Sure, but there's plenty of people that would say, I'm gonna put my feet up. But I think it's that work ethic. I think it's the passion that drives you is what keeps you going.
Well, I've had opportunity to sell that company Bolero now. They've been trying to buy everybody. And I've known the head of Bolero since he only owned one center. Very smart man, Tom Shannon. But I've turned him down twice. I mean, next year I could have walked away with a whole bunch of money. But I'd like to see my company survive after I'm long gone.
Sure.
And I think it means so much to, number one, it would disrupt my 500 and some odd employees that count on us for a paycheck.
Sure.
They've been loyal to me. Why shouldn't I be loyal to them?
That's right.
And even though it's changing, the landscape of bowling, it's harder to find mechanics now.
It is.
A lot of people are going to string pin setters. We haven't done that yet.
Thank you. And I know that's hard. I was talking to the guy that owns Eastside Bowl, Chark.
Yep.
And, he said, I don't need a mechanic. He goes, one time in the last 18 months, I had to send the bartender back there and unwind the pins.
Fortunately, we have some really good mechanics.
Yeah.
And so
That have been with you a long time, too.
some of them, yeah. Boyd Cantrell has been with me for 24 years. He's a year older than me.
I love that. That's great.
Jim, you were talking about different bowlers.
Yeah.
Besides yourself being one of his favorite bowlers, its other favorite bowlers are the special needs bowlers.
Oh, yeah.
That means a lot.
Yeah. And, I mean, they just light up. It's just...
We have almost full house of special need kids on Monday night. And some of them, when I say kids, some of those are 30-year-olds. And I tell everybody, if you really want to see some real love, come and look at the parents of those kids.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a young girl, both 300.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Really?
Special needs, yep.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I love about bowling is you can be 2 and push the ball down the slide. You could be 92, and everybody can have fun together. Like it is. Don't get me wrong. I never was any good at baseball, but I understand why people love it. But baseball is not necessarily a sport that from 2 to 92 could play, you know? And so to have a sport that the whole family can play really your whole life, if you're still upright, you can figure out a way to do it. I don't know if you ever knew Don Durr from Clarksville, but he was 92 when he passed away a year before last. And he bowled all the way up until about 6 weeks before he passed away.
Well, we had a bowler in Knoxville that just passed away who was 104.
Oh, my gosh.
And when she's 102, she's in 3 leagues. Never started bowling until she was 65 and her husband died.
It was for that social aspect.
Yeah.
And the exercise that comes from it. I mean, you think about it. I mean, if you're going to throw a bowl, I mean, everybody bowls 3 games. There's plenty of watchers out there that may not be bowlers, but in league, you're going to bowl 3 games. And you're going to throw that ball somewhere in the neighborhood of 36 to 72 times. And it's anywhere from 10 pounds up to 16 pounds. That's a decent workout. But it's also that social interaction with the people that you're bowling with, just the interaction with your team members matters.
It does. And 90% of our league bowlers are in it for those reasons, the companionship. The money leagues, I try to stay away from those leagues. Don't mean turn them away from bowling. I just don't want to go and be the spectator.
Right.
Because that's when the people are really just bowling for money. Mm-hmm. They're not bowling for the fun of the game. They're going to get in there where it has the biggest prize fund. And they're usually hot shot bowlers.
Sure.
And so I've seen them from where league prizes fund is $25,000 to $2,000, but there's more arguments and discontent in those leagues than any other league you have.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah.
And I started out on a fun league. It was a Sunday night. They called it the restaurant league, because it was after everybody kind of got off work. I think it started at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And then I've been on the same Thursday night league for 24, 25 years, somewhere around in there.
That's a money league, isn't it?
It really used to be more so than it is these days. There were a few years where it wasn't a full league anymore. Yeah. And so it's modified these days. But, it's also some of your best bowlers within 500 miles are in that league. Yeah. And some of them drive 2 hours to get there.
Sandra Sears in there every week.
Yeah. And a lot of them you see in your money leagues. Oh, yeah. They bowl 4 or 5 nights a week, and it's a job to them. Yeah. And when it gets to be a job for me, it's I take a break or those types of things. But one of the hardest things I ever did in 2016, we had to go through a gigantic growth phase at work, and I had to let my team know, I don't know when I'll be back, and it was almost 3 years. And coming back from that was maybe the hardest thing. I did not realize how much I would lose, just the muscle memory and all the things. Yeah. It was tough, but so glad that I did, because it's the familiar faces. It's all the things.
Right.
Who's been a mentor for you through that? I'm sure that these days you're a mentor for others, but who helped you along the way?
Well, I think the most help that I received to set me a standard was Jess Neely, my athletic director at Vanderbilt. Mm-hmm. He had been a head football coach at Rice and Clemson, and he's just a man of integrity. I remember when he came to see me at Goodlettsville, he said, "I want you to be our baseball coach at Vanderbilt." And I said, "Why would I want to do that? Y'all not very good." And he said, "Well, you're right. We're not, but I'll help you." Yeah. And it's just something about that man. And I learned that, he was at Rice when Bear Bryant was at A&M. Mm-hmm. He would never call Bear Bear. He called him Paul, because Paul had Bear had been caught cheating at A&M. And he just emphasized play by the rules. when the things go bad, don't be blaming other people. Don't take credit for everything. He's just a manner that he had, and he was up in his years. After he quit being AD, he served as a golf coach at Vanderbilt, and he was just an inspiration to me. Keep your word. If you give your word, keep it. If something comes up you can't, you go explain why you can't do that. And treat your players with respect. Treat them all alike. Give them a responsibility and hold them to that. I can't emphasize anymore from what I learned at Vanderbilt, dealing with less than what other teams had, but not using it as an alibi.
Sure.
That probably taught me more than any other thing I've done.
A lot of people don't realize how many different types of jobs there are in bowling, whether it's at the center itself or whether it's the marketing for a center, the business aspect of a center, the inventory management of a center, the food and beverage, the hospitality side.
We have a world of first-time job holders, especially in our circus worlds, our family entertainment center. We got a lot. I mean, picture yourself as you're now the general manager, and on Saturdays, you've got 16 teenagers working over there. They all have their cell phones, and they want to talk on their cell phones, and you don't want them to talk on their cell phones. You want them to do their job.
Right.
Some people say the owners chased them off. Well, or it got too expensive. Time chased them off.
Yeah.
It's more things for people to do.
There's a lot more competition.
Instead of saying, I'm going to tie up 32 consecutive Thursdays
That's right.
to go bowl, I want to do other things. I love bowling. So most of your leagues that you start now are 12, 14, 16-week leagues. Take a couple weeks off at Christmas. If you really love it, we have another 14-team league.
Yeah.
So if you start a new league, say we got a new league, and we're going to bowl 35 weeks, you're going to have like 2 teams.
Yeah, you're not going to get new bowlers.
No.
Yeah. Well, and I hear stories about you all the time. Team, is Jim Cripps here with the Charge Forward podcast. I just want to tell you I love you. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you for subscribing and sharing the Charge Forward podcast with people you know and you love, because that's what we're here for. We are here to share the amazing stories, the things that people have been through, the ways that they were able to improve their life, so that you can take little nuggets from theirs and help improve your story and be better tomorrow than you were today. I hope that this is the tool you needed at the right time, and that you find value in the amazing guests that we bring each and every week. Thanks so much, and don't forget, new episodes drop every Thursday.